Mr. Bookman here. Before I go ahead and start today's audiobook, do me one small favor. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And if you like today's book, make sure you do give it a thumbs up. Also, check out the comments for discussions. But more importantly, make sure you look in the description. You're going to see a link in there that's going to give you access to over 200 ebooks. Now let's dive right into today's book.
Whole Hogs. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Chuck Williamson. Charles Dickens, 200th Anniversary Collection, Volume 3. Whole Hogs by Charles Dickens. The public market has been of late more than unusually remarkable for transactions on the American principle in whole and indivisible hogs. The market has been heavy, not the least approach to briskness having been observed in any part of it. But the transactions, such as they have been exclusively for whole hogs. Those who may only have had a retail inclination for sides, ribs, limbs, cheeks, face, trotters, snout, ears, or tail, have been required to take the whole hog, sinking none of the offal, but consenting to it all, and a great deal of it too. It has been discovered that mankind at large can only be regenerated by a teetotal society, or by a peace society, or by always dining on vegetables. It is to be particularly remarked that either of these certain means of regeneration is utterly defeated, if so much as a hair's breadth of the tip of either ear of that particular pig be left out of the bargain. Qualify your water with a teaspoonful of wine or brandy, we beg pardon, alcohol, and there is no virtue in temperance. Maintain a single sentry at the gate of the Queen's palace, and it is utterly impossible that you can be peaceful. Stew so much as the bone of a mutton chop in the pot with your vegetables, and you will never make another Eden out of a kitchen garden. You must take the whole hog, sir, and every bristle on him, or you and the rest of mankind will never be regenerated. Now, without inquiring at present whether means of regeneration that are so easily spoiled may not a little resemble the pair of dancing shoes in the story which the lady destroyed by walking across a room in them, we will consider the whole hog question from another point of view. First, stand aside to see the great teetotal procession come by. It is called a temperance procession, which is not an honest use of a plain word, but never mind that. Hurrah, hurrah! The flags are blue, and the letters golden. Hurrah, hurrah! Here are a great many excellent, straightforward, thoroughly well-meaning, and exemplary people, 4 and 4, or 2 and 2. Hurrah, hurrah! Here are a great many children, also 4 and 4, or 2 and 2. Who are they? They, sir, are the juvenile temperance bands of hope. Lord bless me! What are the juvenile temperance bands of hope? They are the infantine brigade of regenerators of mankind. Indeed? Hurrah, hurrah! These young citizens being pledged to total abstinence, and being fully competent to pledge themselves to anything for life, and it being the custom of such young citizens' parents in the existing state of unregenerated society to bring them up on ardent spirits and strong beer, both of which are commonly kept in barrels behind the door on tap in all large families, expressly for persons of tender years, of whom it is calculated that 7/8 always go to the bed drunk. This is a grand show, so again, hurrah, hurrah! Who are these gentlemen, walking 2 and 2, with medals on their stomachs, and bows in their buttonholes? These, sir, are the committee. Are they? Hurrah, hurrah! One cheer more for the committee. Hoorah! A cheer for the Reverend Jabez Fireworks, fond of speaking. A cheer for the gentleman with the stand-up collar, Mr. Gloss, fond of speaking. A cheer for the gentleman with the massive watch chain, who smiles so sweetly on the surrounding fair, Mr. Glib, fond of speaking. A cheer for the rather dirty little gentleman, who looks like a converted hyena, Mr. Scradger, fond of speaking. A cheer for the dark-eyed brown gentleman of the Dove delegate from America, fond of speaking. A cheer for the swarm who follow, blackening the procession, regenerators from everywhere in general, all good men, all fond of speaking, and all going to speak. I have no right to object, I am sure. Hurrah, hurrah! The Reverend Jabez Fireworks, and the great Mr. Gloss, and the popular Mr. Glib, and the eminent Mr. Scradger, and the Dove delegate from America, and the distinguished swarm from everywhere, have ample opportunity, and profit by it too, for speaking to their heart's content. For is there not today a grand demonstration meeting? And tomorrow another grand demonstration meeting, and the day after tomorrow a grand united regenerative zoological visitation, and the day after that a grand aggregate general demonstration, and the day after that a grand associated regenerative breakfast, and the day after that a general associated regenerative tea, and the day after that a final grand aggregate compounded united and associated steamboat river demonstration? And do the regenerators go anywhere without speaking by the bushel? Still, what offense to me? None. Still, I am content to cry, hurrah, hurrah! If the regenerators, though estimable men, be the most tiresome men as speakers under heaven, if their sincerest and best followers cannot, in the infirmity of human nature, bear the infliction of such oratory, but occupy themselves in preference with tea and rolls, or resort for comfort to the less terrible society of lions, elephants, and bears, or drown the regenerative eloquence in the clash of brazen bands, I think it sensible and right, and still exclaim, hurrah! But how, if with the matter of such eloquence, when any of it happens to be heard, and also happens not to be a singular compound of references to the Bible, and selections from Joe Miller, I find, on drawing nearer, that I have some business? How if I find that the distinguished swarm are not of that quiet class of gentlemen whom Mr. Carlyle describes as consuming their own smoke, but that they emit a vast amount of smoke and blacken their neighbors very considerably? Then as a neighbor myself I have perhaps a right to speak? In Bedlam, and in all other madhouses, society is denounced as being wrongfully combined against the patient. In Newgate, and in all other prisons, society is denounced as being wrongfully combined against the criminal. In the speeches of the Reverend Jabez and the other regenerators, society is denounced as being wrongfully and wickedly combined against their own particular whole hog, who must be swallowed every bristle, or there is no pork in him. The proof? Society won't come in and sign the pledge. Society won't come in and recruit the juvenile temperance bands of hope. Therefore, society is fond of drunkenness, sees no harm in it, favors it very much, is a drunkard, a base, worthless, sensual, profligate brute. Fathers and mothers, sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, divines, physicians, lawyers, editors, authors, painters, poets, musicians, queen, lords, ladies, and commons, are all in league against the regenerators, are all violently attached to drunkenness, are all the more dangerous if by any chance they be personal examples of temperance in the real meaning of the word, which last powerful steam hammer of logic has become a pet one, and is constantly to be observed in action. Against this sweeping misrepresentation, I take the liberty of entering my feeble protest. With all respect to Jabez, for Gloss, for Glib, for Dove Delegate, and for Scrodger, I must make so bold as to observe that when a Malay runs amuck he cannot be considered in a temperate state of mind. Also, that when a thermometer stands at fever heat, it cannot claim to indicate temperate weather. A man to be truly temperate must be temperate in many respects, in the rejection of strong words no less than of strong drinks. And I crave leave to assert against my good friends the regenerators that, in such gross statements, they set a most intemperate example. I even doubt whether an equal number of drunkards, under the excitement of the strongest liquors, could set a worse example. And I would beg to put it seriously to the consideration of those who have sufficient powers of endurance to stand about the platform, listening, whether they think of this sufficiently, whether they ever knew the like of this before, whether they have any experience or knowledge of a good cause that was ever promoted by such bad means, whether they ever heard of an association of people deliberately, by their chosen vessel, throwing overboard every effort but their own, made for the amelioration of the condition of men, unscrupulously vilifying all other laborers in the vineyard, calumniously setting down as aiders and abettors of an odious vice which they know to be held in general abhorrence, and consign to general shame the great compact mass of the community, of its intelligence, of its morality, of its earnest endeavors after better things, if, upon consideration, they know of no such other case, then the inquiry will perhaps occur to them, whether in supporting a so conducted cause they really be upholders of temperance, dealing with words which should be signs for truth, according to the truth that is in them. Mankind can only be regenerated, proclaim the fatteners of the whole hog number 2, by means of a peace society. Well, I call out to the nearest peace society my worthy friend John Bates, an excellent workman and a sound man, lineally descended from that sturdy soldier of the same name who spake with King Henry V on the night before the battle of Agincourt. Bates, says I, how about this regeneration? Why can it only be effected by means of a peace society? Says Bates in answer, because war is frightful, ruinous, and unchristian, because the details of one battle, because the horrors of one siege would so appall you if you knew them, that probably you never could be happy afterwards, because man was not created in the image of his Maker to be blasted with gunpowder, or pierced with bayonets, or gashed with swords, or trampled under iron hoofs of horses into a puddle of mire and blood, because war is a wickedness that always costs us dear, because it wastes our treasure, hardens our hearts, paralyzes our industry, cripples our commerce, occasions losses, ills, and devilish crimes unspeakable and out of number. Says I sadly, but have I not, O Bates, known all this for this many a year? It may be so, says Bates. Then come into the Peace Society. Says I, why come in there, Bates? Says Bates, because we declare we won't have war or show of war. We won't have armies, navies, camps, or ships. England shall be disarmed, we say, and all these horrors ended. Says I, how ended, Bates? Says Bates, By arbitration, we have a dove delegate from America and a mouse delegate from France, and we are establishing a bond of brotherhood, and that'll do it. Alas! It will not do it, Bates. I too have thought upon the horrors of war, of the blessings of peace, and of the fatal distraction of men's minds from seeking them, by the roll of the drum and the thunder of the inexorable cannon. However, Bates, the world is not so far upon its course yet, but that there are tyrants and oppressors left upon it, watchful to find freedom weak, that they may strike, and backed by great armies. O John Bates, look out towards Austria, look out towards Russia, look out towards Germany, look out towards the Purple Sea, that lies so beautiful and calm beyond the filthy jails of Naples. Do you see nothing there? Says Bates, like the sister in Bluebeard, but much more triumphantly. I see nothing there but dust. And this is one of the inconveniences of a fattened whole and indivisible hog, that it fills up the doorway and its breeders cannot see beyond it. Dust, says Bates. I tell Bates that it is because there are, behind that dust, oppressors and oppressed, arrayed against each other. That it is because there are, beyond his dove delegate and his mouse delegate, the wild beast of the forest. That it is because I dread and hate the miseries of tyranny and war. That it is because I would not be soldier-ridden, nor have other men so, that I am not for the disarming of England, and cannot be a member of his peace society, admitting all his premises, but denying his conclusion. Whereupon Bates, otherwise just and sensible, insinuates that, not being for his whole and indivisible hog, I can be for no part of his hog, and that I have never felt or thought what his society now tells me it, and only it, feels and thinks as a new discovery, and that when I am told of the new discovery, I don't care for it. Mankind can only be regenerated by dining on vegetables. Why? Certain worthy gentlemen have dined, it seems, on vegetables for ever so many years, and are none the worse for it. Straightway these excellent men, excited to the highest pitch, announce themselves by public advertisement as distinguished vegetarians, vault upon a platform, hold a vegetable festival, and proceed to show, not without prolixity and weak jokes, that a vegetable diet is the only true faith, and that in eating meat mankind is wholly mistaken and partially corrupt. Distinguished vegetarians! As the men who wear nankeen trousers might hold a similar meeting, and become distinguished Nankinarians. But am I to have no meat? If I take a pledge to eat 3 cauliflowers daily in the cauliflower season, a peck of peas daily in the pea time, a gallon of broad Windsor beans daily when beans are in, and a young cabbage or so every morning before breakfast, with perhaps a little ginger between meals, as a vegetarian substance corrective of that windy diet, may I not be allowed half an ounce of gravy beef to flavor my potatoes? Not a shred. Distinguished vegetarians can acknowledge no imperfect animal. Their hog must be a whole hog, according to the fashion of the time. Now we would so far renew the custom of sacrificing animals as to recommend that an altar be erected to our country, at present sheltering so many of those very inconvenient and unwieldy hogs, on which their grosser portions should be burnt and purged away. The whole hog of the temperance movement, divested of its intemperate assumption of infallibility, and of its intemperate determination to run grunting at the legs of the general population of this empire, would be a far less unclean and a far more serviceable creature than at present. The whole hog of the peace society acquiring the recognition of a community of feeling between itself and many who hold war in no less abhorrence, but who yet believe that in the present era of the world some preparation against it is a preservative of peace and a restraint upon despotism, would become as much enlightened as its learned predecessor Toby, of immortal memory. And if distinguished vegetarians of all kinds would only allow a little meat, and if distinguished flesh-meatarians of all kinds would only yield a little vegetable, if the former, quietly devouring the fruits of the earth to any extent, would admit the possible morality of mashed potatoes with beef, and if the latter would concede a little spinach with gammon, and if both could manage to get on with a little less platforming, there being at present rather an undue preponderance of cry over wool, if all of us, in short, were to yield up something of our whole and entire animals, it might be very much the better in the end, both for us and for them. After all, my friends and brothers, even the best whole and indivisible hog may be but a small fragment of the higher and greater work called education. End of Whole Hogs.
Mr. Bookman here. I hope you enjoyed today's audiobook. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and go ahead and tell us what you thought about the book in the comments. But more importantly, don't forget to check out the description. It's got a link in there that's going to give you access to over 200 ebooks. And we'll see you next time. And remember, you are appreciated.